afternoon, everybody. This is Vivica from the Nourished Caveman and the Healing Foods Method. And today we're here to talk about perimenopause and specifically about the difference between conventional treatment of perimenopause versus the natural treatment of perimenopause. I know that a lot of you ladies who follow me are going through perimenopause right now and have started to feel some of the symptoms and dealing with some of the symptoms of your hormonal changes. December is for me perimenopause month, so that every video that I'm doing this month, every video this month is on the topic of perimenopause. We're going to look at different aspects. Last week we started introducing the topic, so looking at what perimenopause means, the symptoms, and today we're going to start going into actually what we can do about it, seen from two different perspectives. One, the one of conventional medicine, allopathic medicine, and the one of natural medicine or functional medicine as we call it today, and also functional nutrition and functional endocrinology, which is what I specialize in. I am not an endocrinologist, I am not a doctor, I am a nutritionist, but I have, during my studies and my practice, had to specialize on hormones because of the needs of my clients, because all the women that I work with ended up having underlying hormonal issues that were pretty much dominating the picture of their health. And so in order for us to be able to resolve their broader health pictures, we had to focus on hormones, even though in nutrition we always focus on digestion first and then on detoxification, because it's important that you are able to eliminate the toxins and then absorb the nutrients in order for you to be able to reset those hormones and balance them. And I'm sure that you have heard this in many different places. A lot of people out there are now talking about functional endocrinology under different names, but the whole idea is how to get our endocrine system to be in balance in the best possible way, especially when the hormonal changes hit. I say this in a lot of my videos. We live in a world full of dangers for our endocrine system, full of toxins, a lot of exogenous hormones in the environment that we are bombarded with as women all the time. And I'm going to talk about it more next week as we talk specifically about estrogen and progesterone. I talked about estrogen dominance in the week of about 3 weeks ago in connection with adrenals. I want to talk more about estrogen dominance. We'll talk next week about the roles of estrogen and progesterone. I think it's really important to understand these basics when it comes to your hormonal health, because when you become symptomatic, and most likely in this day and age, I would think that about 95% of women will become symptomatic in perimenopause because of this hormone contamination in the environment that comes through our beauty products, our foods, even cleaning products, household products, and even pollution from pesticides and fertilizers in our food again. So it's really important for us to know this picture and be aware of what we are dealing with on a daily basis, because these are real challenges that do affect our health. And the more aware we are, the better we can navigate it and then take control of our hormonal health and be able to rebalance and heal. So what would your doctor do if you went to the doctor and you talked about the symptoms of perimenopause, like we were talking last week? If you started having mood swings, depression, anxiety, lack of sleep, interrupted sleep, hot flashes, night sweats, all of those can be symptoms of perimenopause. So what would your doctor do? Oh, and by the way, another big one is irregular periods and very heavy clotty periods. These are a common part of perimenopause. So the first most common thing, we already talked about that, but the quick solution a doctor or a nurse practitioner or an OB-GYN will give you is the pill. They will put you on birth control. If you've never been on birth control, they will put you on birth control now. So they will say there is nothing else you can do to rebalance your hormones. Just take the pill. The pill will like make your symptoms go away. It will make your period go away, and you will be fine. What happens instead is that the pill just suppresses the symptoms by overriding the hormones, which could be manageable for the time that you're on the pill, but eventually you're going to have to come off that pill and deal with your hormone imbalances or the consequences of the hormone imbalances that you have tried to suppress. Things like osteoporosis or longer term effects like hypothyroidism. When female hormone imbalances are not addressed, your thyroid will eventually be affected. Adrenal fatigue also can be masked by the use of oral contraceptives while it keeps getting worse. So these are some of the risks that you run when you are trying to mask symptoms with just birth control. Another easy fix is HRT, or hormone replacement therapy. Most of the times, especially in the past, the last 10-20 years, has been done with synthetic hormones, progestin. So progesterone is the first hormone that starts declining in perimenopause, and HRT will supply synthetic progesterone to mask symptoms and minimize the symptoms of the lack of progesterone. Your body does not recognize progestin as real progesterone. It can help alleviate some of the symptoms, but it can also have some major consequences like increase of ovarian cancer or breast cancer. There are many studies that now link artificial hormone replacement to different kinds of cancer. Another more radical solution the doctor could offer is a complete hysterectomy. Your periods are heavy, you might be developing fibroids, you might have hemorrhages, become anemic because of that, and your doctor will say, well, let's just take it all out, call it a day. And there goes your reproductive system, which is still, taking out your uterus, hopefully leaving your ovaries. It will not resolve the underlying problems, especially adrenals and thyroid, that are left behind in connection with your sex hormone problems. And then one of the other solutions your doctor could offer is to put you on medication, anti-anxiety or antidepressants, because you are experiencing those emotional symptoms and more like psychological symptoms, lack of sleep and high anxiety during the day, mood swings, mood up and downs, and the doctor would not even try to work with the hormones, but just put you on an antidepressant and call it a day. Again, it will just be masking the symptom and not really addressing what is going on. So just to recap it in a nutshell, the dangers of masking hormonal symptoms without resolving them is that whatever imbalance is working in the background is going to keep going and getting more and more pronounced, so that your thyroid will be eventually compromised as well, leading a prescription for thyroid medication if you're going this conventional way, and adrenal fatigue will eventually become very dominant and increasing from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3 to eventually adrenal exhaustion if something is not done. I see a lot of women who they really come to me in that state of adrenal exhaustion, and sometimes without even knowing what it means, and without even knowing what it means to support adrenals, because conventional medicine does not recognize adrenal fatigue as a real condition. So these are just part of the consequences of going the medical route. Now, before we start talking about the convention, the natural solution, the more solutions in harmony with your body, the way to rebalance your hormones and how to do it, I would like to hear if there are any questions. I know some of you are watching, and thank you for being here with me today. I really appreciate you coming here and spending some time talking about your health and caring about your health, and investing some of your precious time trying to learn more about what's going on in your body, and hopefully helping to find a clue about how to resolve this issue. The first solution that can offer from a restorative or functional perspective will be dietary changes. Of course, from a nutritionist point of view, for me, that will be number one of the steps that we need to do in addressing your symptoms. When it comes to symptoms of perimenopause, hi Marsha, oh, you're a new one here. Nice to see you here on this channel. Where are you watching from? So dietary changes, why are they important? They're important because a lot of the foods that you are eating might be one of the very reasons of why your hormones are out of balance. And we don't always make a connection between the food we eat and our periods. You know, it's not an immediate connection where day in, day out, you're just trying to feed yourself the best way you know to. And then, you know, hypothyroidism, the adrenals, all of this. Let me give you a couple of examples here. Gluten, of course, it's a big one. How is gluten connected to your hormones? Number one, gluten, you can be sensitive to gluten itself, or you can be sensitive to the pesticides and chemicals that come in with the gluten. Whenever you're eating conventional gluten, you're eating a GMO food, also a food that is being sprayed with a number of pesticides. And pesticides are both estrogen disruptors and estrogen mimickers. So it's easy to become estrogen dominant when we are eating a lot of food that have been sprayed with pesticides. If that would be the only reason to drop the gluten and the grains, it's a good enough reason to do so, because the toxic load that they bring into our body is quite high. And yes, you can hear a lot of different opinions today, like this big giant vegan movement promoting healthy grains, you know, when they are the very ones that are actually promoting mass production of grains, which involves being synthetically produced, not organically. So with Monsanto made pesticides. Glyphosate is an antibiotic, by the way, and it destroys your gut. When your gut is destroyed, your gut is malfunctioning, you cannot convert thyroid hormones. So here is another big correlation of why you don't want to use pesticide-laden foods like grains and vegetables as well. So we need, and yes, meat as well. The meat is part of this chain if we do not choose a better product. So it's because of the cross-contamination, it's very hard to get clean grains, especially gluten-containing grains. So eating clean meat, grass-fed and pasture meat, eggs, chickens and whatever, you know, animal products, it will be better at this point than eating a conventional diet that is, you know, been contaminated with this kind of substances. So dietary changes, gluten was my first example. Dairy is another example. How does dairy affect your hormones? It can be both from the same thing we just talked about, pesticides, antibiotics, hormone disruptors, you know, that is our keyword there. And also because the dairy itself contains hormones. Cow milk contains certain hormones that will affect the balance of a delicate system like our system as women in perimenopause. You might be able to tolerate dairy when you're younger and your hormones are more solid, which is unfortunately not really the case anymore. So many women are having hormonal issues and fertility issues already in their early 20s and 30s. So a second solution, natural solution, would be nutritional support. So what do we mean by that? We mean supplementation. I have talked quite extensively about supplementation and what I do. I use whole food supplements. They're food concentrates, sometimes from organs and sometimes from different parts of the animal and sometimes from vegetables, containing very specific nutrients to help your body function. And otherwise, I'll use herbs like adaptogens or homeopathics. And what I always tell my clients is that I use the whole food concentrates to nourish the body and using the adaptogens to help the body tolerate the stress of, all the environmental stressors and like help the body be more resilient. And the homeopathics are what teach our cells to work again when there has been dysfunction. So homeopathics are very specific and they come in with different functions, and some of them help us detoxify. Some specific formulas, they help open up the drainage so that we can detoxify. And then some other ones are reteaching the systems and the organs how to function correctly and how to communicate with each other, which is really important in the case of our endocrine system because it's a balanced system that works all together. So what are other alternatives for healing in a natural way? Exercise, specific targeted exercise for perimenopause. We talked about that in the video about adrenal fatigue, so you can go find it, and there is a video specifically for women over 40 and exercise. So there is about 45 minutes of explanation there about what's the best way to exercise. Go check it out. It's going to be on the YouTube channel under the playlist Live Videos 2019, or here on Facebook under my videos. That's where you find all these live videos. They're all there. Stress reduction, it's another really important part, because as we get into perimenopause towards menopause, we become much more stress sensitive. And we talked about it again. So we want to make sure that we start implementing some practices, and really a practice is like a little bit of a daily something that we do until it becomes a habit. And stress reduction is important to rewire our brains when we are very susceptible to stress. So things like meditation, yoga, walking. For me, the easiest, cheapest, most effective way to reduce stress is walking. And that's something that is accessible for all of you, and especially in the evening or afternoon. Now it gets dark so early, so even doing it like right before it gets dark. I take my dog for a walk. Even around the block, around the neighborhood, it's really cold here. Sometimes it's snowing, it's raining, but the benefit of just one 20-minute walk are immense, because it really helps you disconnect, lowers your cortisol, sets you up for the evening for a sweet descending into the evening towards resting and relaxing for the night. Detoxification, it's another really important point, and how we work to help rebalance your hormones. I will never stress the importance of detoxing enough. The liver is the hub of the hormones. All the hormones have to go through the liver to be either detoxed out or repurposed, and sometimes they bounce back when the liver is congested. That's why with estrogen especially, it's a really big problem, and it will like cause estrogen dominance. On top, of all the other reasons when your liver is congested. So we really need to focus on unplugging that liver. And then time in nature kind of ties in with distressing. And spending time outside, I feel, is something that we neglect. But all the people that, those thought leaders that are really into health and exercise and movement, they know how important it is to spend time outside, spend time in nature, spend time connecting with your feet on the earth. There is a practice, it's called earthing. Whenever you can and the ground is not frozen and it's not covered in snow, as soon as you're able to, for those of you that live in warmer places, you can do it year round, to spend some time with your feet on the ground, and maybe it's just sitting on the bottom of a tree and reading, or maybe it's just like hugging a tree. And yes, that has its own benefits because we can ground our energy and connect it to the energy of the tree. If you are skeptical about energy, just look into quantum physics and the discovery of physics that is kind of caught up to a lot of the more esoteric beliefs about energy. But when we wear rubber-soled shoes all day, our energy is never able to ground. It's just like when there is a lot of electromagnetic and static energy in the air and you touch something and you cause spark, that proves you that you are carrying energy, and it's not just from the air, it's also from our body generating. So it is important to be able to release that energy into the earth, and the earth and nature, they help us release that stress, that toxic energy that we accumulate when we're indoors too much or we are wearing too many clothes, too many layers. So I am a big fan of hot springs. For those of you who are not able to go walk on the beach in December, hot springs might be an option to get into the hot water, connecting with nature, hopefully outdoors. There are some beautiful hot springs in the snow where you can get the hot cold therapy as well. And for those of you who don't know, Wim Hofmann is a very big proponent of the cold therapy. I am starting just dipping my toes in there, but those are all ways that we can get our body to be more aligned with its natural cycles, become more resilient, and in ways that don't really cost anything, and you don't have to work with a practitioner for that. You can just do it yourself at home.